Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Coming to the concluding part of the topic on citizenship, it is important to look at public administration and the very law on citizenship. I think while we say there is rights that citizens have, then there is the distinction of who a foreigner or an alien is. The duty and obligations of the foreigners in India may be governed under the Foreigners Act of 1946 or the Registration of Foreigners Act of 1939. Of course, we have to say that foreigners in India will not be treated equally because only citizens have the right to be treated equally. And hence, foreigners may be treated unequally, which means that they may be treated slightly different from what Indians or Indian citizens have. But does it mean that foreigners have no rights at all in India or under the Constitution of India? First of all, a foreigner is one who is not a citizen of this country but still continues to reside in this country for various reasons and purposes. He could be a foreigner who travels to India on a tourist visa and decides to overstay, or he's probably traveling in India. He is here on business. He is here on research. He is here on a diplomatic mission, or any other person. But generally they are not citizens, right? They are not citizens who are holding the Indian citizenship. And hence, I think the Constitution of India very clearly says that foreigners will not have fundamental rights of certain kinds and categories. For example, those mentioned under Article 19 are solely available to Indian citizens alone. These are, freedoms that citizens alone will have. In Article 19, you will notice that only citizens have the freedom of speech and expression. Only citizens have the freedom of movement. Only citizens have the freedom to, do trade, occupation, and business. These are only provided to citizens. So citizens have these extra freedoms that foreigners may not have. And I think every other constitution tries to make that distinction. Second, you will notice that every sovereign nation, while can deny foreigners certain kinds of freedoms or rights, you will notice that as democratic sovereign states, they have to follow the principles of natural justice. And basic human rights have to be granted even for foreign nationals. And that is where the UDHR principle of 1948 becomes very relevant and important. It talks about Universal Declaration of Human Rights as an integral part of the democratic process. And these are not just constitution given rights, they are universal rights of human beings. This is an international law, and international law usually guides most of national law, but sometimes what national law cannot provide, international law can provide. You have to understand that while UDHR has not been ratified by India expressly, to a larger extent the Supreme Court and the High Courts have recognized UDHR as the principle to govern rights, which are not necessarily just fundamental, but which are very basic rights, which even non-citizens should be entitled to. And hence, non-citizens cannot be deprived of their basic liberty and equality, as the case may be. And foreign nationals can access, the judicial system in this country. They can actually, access democratic process in this country. But as the going says, that it's not an absolute right, and it cannot be compared to the rights of the citizen. Also, one must note that there are two articles in the Constitution, Article 22 and Article 20 and 21. These are rights generally that are used in the exercise of, say, detention or arrest. These are rights in terms of where liberty is being taken away. You will notice that in cases, some of these fundamental rights can be suspended during emergency, but we have to assume that those that are providing, say, the right of self-incrimination the right of an accused during arrest. All of these rights shall be as fundamental rights available to non-citizens or foreigners as well, because the Constitution nowhere uses the word citizen. It uses the word citizen only in Article 19. So I think foreigners have been given protection under the Constitution. They have been recognized with certain kinds of rights, and they are entities that are recognized in the Constitution of India, and hence public administration has a duty and an obligation to not only recognize these rights of the foreigners but also respect it, adhere to it, and see that these rights are not infringed. So foreigners are treated humanely. Foreigners have access to the justice delivery system in this nation, and to a larger extent, I think foreigners have a positive right, as the case may be, under the Constitution of India. Yes, they are not having all the absolute rights, all the rights that a citizen has, and I think that's only fair to give them important rights and not all that are necessary in the democratic process. Now, having said about these things about foreigners, it is important that we also discuss at this point of time, public administration vis-a-vis the citizenship concept. Why is citizen and administration so very important? Right? What is the linkage between citizenship and public administration? Is public administration entirely functionally interconnected to the concept of citizenship? Right? You will notice that public administration is generally established to serve citizenship. The purpose of public administration, administration of those kind of entitlements that are useful to the public. That's what public administration can be normally defined. So, how does the administration and administrators administer public property, public rights, and how do they adhere to public duties? What kind of facilities and benefits citizens are entitled to, and how can they be transferred functionally to the public is, I think, very importantly connected with these two words called citizenship and public administration. So every administration usually has to take decisions in this democratic setup for the benefit of the citizens or the larger public, as it were. And you will notice that it is the citizens who can make the choice of the kind of public administration that they want. So citizens definitely have this right, and you will notice that if there is growth of citizenship, if there is growth of people rights, if there is growth of the economic capacity of the citizens, there is growth of public administration, right? So these are two very connected I must say concepts under the Constitution. And I think while we say they have a core relative kind of a connection, I think the purpose of public administration, or the establishment of public administration, is citizen-centric and citizen-oriented. Now, interestingly, friends, to be honest, I think citizens have expectations, right? And while you talk about citizens having expectation, let me tell you, they may have a couple of expectations. First is that they don't want the public administration to be like an alien administration. I'm just giving you a simple example. Now, what is an alien administration? It's something that is foreign, something that is distant, something that is not representing, a section of the same society or community, not being responsible to the apathy of citizens or the problems that citizens often face, is probably alien public administration. The ideology of public administration, friends, today has moved. It has moved from being merely a regulator to being a welfare providing public administration. So, initially public administration was only something kind of a license Raj. It was merely trying to regulate, be the police state, be the state which has power but not responsible power. But I think right now public administration in India has a very positive role, and that positive role is to provide a lot of civic basic amenities to citizens, trying to take care of their welfare and trying to be more responsible for their well-being. And hence, you will notice that in this context, if there is a gap between what is expected by the citizens and what is delivered by the public administration, naturally it will result in a lot of grievances. And I think it's very common to have these grievances in society between, say, what should the public administration actually do and what it should actually not do. And what it has it done to the satisfaction of the citizens? See, interestingly, citizens are like consumers, and public administration is like the manufacturer. Obviously, one will argue and say that there is nothing like an absolute consumer satisfaction. There is nothing like an absolute citizen satisfaction. However, citizen satisfaction is paramount in terms of evaluation of the functioning of public administration. Does a majority of the community of citizenship accept the role of public administration, accept the functioning of the public administration, and the final implementation of public policies, as it were? Very importantly, friends, public administration has to be trustworthy. Public administration has to be interacting with the citizens. It has to communicate. It has to be transparent. It has to share information. Because don't forget, friends, the whole institution of public administration is funded by citizens who actually pay tax. The whole concept of the institution of public administration arises for the people, and it is created by the people, and it is of the people, because public administration is just a reflection of each individual in the society. Hence, citizen grievances against administration have to reduce. But unfortunately, as India is growing in terms of the LPG era, India is becoming more literate, legally literate nation. More Indians are migrating to the cities, are well off. You will notice that unfortunately some of these citizen grievances are not reduced, but they have increased. There is a growing discontentment among citizens about the way public administration is being done in this country. And hence, the focal point of discussion of politicians and administrators and even judges should be to how and what extent this kind of grievances can be reduced, how can these grievances be addressed amicably, and how can, to a larger extent, the citizens' satisfaction index, if it were so, be improved. I think this is a responsibility of the politicians, the administrators, and jurists who occupy the post of public administrators. And interestingly, friends, one of the most important components of public administration is public awareness. It is important for public administration to reach out and state how and where it is actually moving, in what direction it is framing public policy, and hence the spread of education or literacy or information becomes a very critical factor in the social awakening of people towards administration. And hence, the more open the ideology of the public administration is, the more transparent it is, the more democratic it would actually constitute to be. And hence, today the concept of public administration is not closed door administration. It is not saying that right of admission is reserved. I think public administration is or ought to be more open, more transparent, and that is the process of channel of redressing grievances of citizens. It is only right for citizens to have grievances of public administration because they feel affected, they feel aggrieved by the public policies that are made from public administration from time to time. And hence, I think while public administration must do public good, what it all must also do is that it must ensure that there is no infringement of the concerns, the rights of people in the given process. And I think public administration owes this duty to the concept of citizenship. Citizenship is precisely for the same reason that you look, I belong to this nation and I expect the public administration of this nation to deliver. I can call you, I can recall you, I can vote for you, and that's what the democratic citizenship is conceptualized on against. Now, There are a lot of factors that result in grievances between citizens and public administration. I'm sure there are many such examples, but please note, it is the important duty of public administration to set up institutions for redressal of grievances. And I think that is where the strengthening of the status of a citizen improves. He has to ensure that his grievances are redressed in a timely, speedy, and judicious manner. And he wants to make the government and the institution specially responsible for the exercise of their public powers. So, redressal of grievance, friends, if you notice today, happens through a lot of these quasi judicial bodies that have been created from time to time. For example, it would not be out of the place to say that as of now, say, how does public administration improve accountability? How does public administration improve the informational gap? How does public administration pass on, the vital information of public policy to the citizen? I think one of the mechanisms of doing that is through what is known as the Right to Information Act of 2005. I think RTI Act improved public administration to some extent in India. It was the need of the hour. It was important that citizens can get information from government and public authorities as a matter of right. Earlier, before 2005, it was given as a matter of discretion from the government. And the citizens have the right to know how government functions, where is the money being spent. To a larger extent, you will notice that Right to Information Act also, in one sense, wanted to check corruption in public office and public administration. And please note, citizens have a lot of grievance on corruption, especially in a country like India. Corruption can be a major problem of public life and public administration. And hence, to address all these kinds of grievances, I think the Parliament enacted a very important legislation called the Right to Information Act 2005. And to that extent, the information started passing on. Citizens can demand it, citizens can ask for it, and the government is duty bound to deliver the same. Also, if the information is delayed or denied, interestingly, the RTI Act created a kind of a body called the Information Commissions, both at the Central Information Commission and the State Information Commission, as a quasi-judicial body to redress the grievance between public administration and the citizens who have the right to seek that kind of information. So you will notice that once you read Section 3 of the Right to Information Act, only citizens have the right to information, right? So foreigners do not have. So that is very critical and important. So, citizens has a clear definition or understanding. They can seek this right to information because it's a kind of grievance. It's a kind of leverage of rights between the government, which is a public administration government, to that of the citizen who has the right to vote. So you will notice that RTI is only for citizens, and it is only for that grievance redressal. There is a forum that will redress those kinds of grievance redressal as well. And hence, through the enactment of RTI, one would assume, post 2005, a major objective of promoting citizen satisfaction has been achieved. And I think that is just one of the processes of public law that has looked at granting citizenship, that kind of an interesting progressive right, and I think to a larger extent moving away from the British colonial legacy of saying that there can be secrets of the government. I think that was a major path-breaking movement in this country. Also, I think one should understand that there are expected norms of behavior in a society, and very often than not, these norms are breached by fellow citizens. And it is the duty of the public administration to protect everyone's interest in the society. Everyone has the right to express himself or herself, and those kinds of norms in the society have to be dealt with as strictly as possible. Having said these, friends, please note the norms of behavior in a society between a fellow citizen to another citizen can be redressed, and the police or any other system of governance has to actually come into action. But such norms of behavior are expected even towards foreigners. And hence, you will notice that an Indian must respect the rights of the foreigners. And I think that is the basic behavioral pattern that is expected of citizenship, of citizens in this country. And the bureaucracy of public administration must specially protect foreigners because they feel alien in this state or in this country, and sometimes they are here on tourist and tourism purposes. So, if one recollects the incident of Holi, during which a young YouTube blogger was forcefully molested by putting colors during Holi. She was actually refusing to take those colors, but a young man unfortunately himself on her. And such kinds of action against foreigners are also something that comes within the domain of public administration. A public administration must owe an equal responsibility to protect the rights, liberties of foreigners on land as well. And hence, it is important that foreigners, when they are in India, may also have a lot of grievance of public administration. This is definitely one important possibility. One of the instances or examples of foreigners who may have challenges of public administration could be, the visa or the denial of the visa, extension of visa, or extension of permits to, do business in this country, invest in this country, so on and so forth. So foreigners also should be provided with the platform to redress their grievance as, or if not more than equal to what citizens are expected to have. So I think that kind of alienation of foreigners in any nation only makes that nation non-accessible to foreigners, right? So a country's worth, a country's development is tested by the means and mechanisms of how much the public administration treats the rights of citizens as equal to the rights of foreigners. And hence, any show of arrogance, irritation, lack of proper response, or procrastinations of delay, as the case may be, only tarnishes the image of public administration, not only in the eyes of citizens, but also in the eyes of foreigners, right? And friends, please remember, today public administration, when it has a more positive role, say a welfare role, I think there are so many things of public administration that affect the lives of citizens and foreigners. For example, health services, which are emergency health services. A foreigner may actually, meet with a road accident. So can an Indian meet with a road accident? How does the public administration then respond to such kind of emergency health services required by persons in India? I think is a critical factor of the image of public administration, right? So the kind of support, the kind of assistance that is required from public administration is very, very critical. Because remember, friends, the public administration has a lot of resources at its disposal. It controls government machinery. It is supposed to be held accountable for the same. And I think in certain kinds of matters, citizens and foreigners have to be treated equally. And I don't think either of these parties must be allowed to get frustrated, dissatisfied, or be unhappy with the kind of public administration that is there in the country. Remember, friends, accountability of public administration is so important. If that kind of an accountability, sensitiveness, or responsive public administration is not in place, then what will be the result of it? The result of it, friends, is going to be discontentment among the people. And please note, wide disparity between the performance of the administration and the expectations of the citizen. This gap may result in conditions of oppression, may result in conditions of wrongful, action, may result in infringement of rights, may result in a disinterested society, a disorganized society, which will probably result in a high rate of crime. And, at some point of time, there is so much of a point of no return that the organized state will become totally a kind of a brute nation. So I think the process of administration has to be so just. The process of administration has to deal with corruption. The standards of honesty and integrity towards citizens and their interests must be of the highest rank and order. And also the kind of faith that citizens should have, the kind of account the citizen should be able to get of public administration will go a long way in making a society a much better place to live in. However, friends, please know that an average citizen actually expects certain average things from a public administration. That's all. It's not extraordinarily that the public administration cannot deliver. I think the citizen is the one who created the constitution. He created the public administration. He is we the people, right? And hence, what does the citizen expect from public administration? The first thing that he may expect is that he wants a proper attitude from the officials in the public administration, right? The citizen doesn't expect public officers to have arrogance in the way they speak, they act towards citizens' concerns. Two, I think the most important aspect in India is they expect things to happen as soon as possible, without delay or without any kind of a waiting period. So I think the time of delivery of public policies in public administration has to be fairly at a quick pace. Three, I think citizens expect no favoritism. I think this is very important, that public administration should be fair, and favoritism, unfortunately, which is such a major thing, sometimes has been ruled out. Finally, probably corruption has to be reduced. It's a big ask at this point of time, but probably just taking away middlemen, brokers, is sufficient to a larger extent to deal with corruption sometimes. And finally, I think what citizens expect from public administration is that I think the resources in public administration should be so fairly and equitably distributed so that the gap between the rich and the poor, or the discrimination between the rich and the poor, especially that, the rich can access public administration easily and the poor cannot access public administration easily. I think that simple factors can actually be a tendency that can be overplayed in public administration, and that tendency needs to be curbed. And a failure to recognize a poor citizen's right, I think, is the failure of the public administration, precisely, right? So, taking care of the weakest in the society, taking care of the most vulnerable in the society, it's like a house, friends. In a house, I think the most attention that is deserved are elderly citizens and young children. They are the weakest per se. When I say weak, they are the ones who require the maximum assistance. So public administration is also about that. They have to identify the most vulnerable community citizens and people who require the first attention. They deserve the first call of public administration, and the same should be followed. And hence, I think the interaction between citizenship and public administration is very, very critical to mount the defense of social harmony and social peace. Because once this gap between citizens' expectation and public administration increases, the result is unfortunately going to be social unrest, social violence, social tension, and finally, at some point of time, it may also result in civil war if necessitated in some jurisdictions. So, administrative reforms, as it were, has happened in terms of two reports that have been submitted in India. I think the Administrative Commission does deal with the expectations of public, the need of the public vis-a-vis an unresponsive administration. And I think the constitutions of, say, the Central Vigilance Commission, the Lokpal, the Lokayukta, to some extent deal with the administrative process of corruption. But again, these are not sufficient agencies that can make the public administration responsive. Finally, if we have to conclude, I think on this part, it is important to conclude on the fact of nationality versus citizenship. Very often than not, friends, these two words are used quite interchangeably and synonymously in India. If we say you are an Indian national, you hold the Indian citizenship. Of course, I think nationality is more patriotic. It is more nation-centric. Nationality is more international law-centric. Citizenship is domestic. It is within the citizen versus state. Nationality is between the state It's citizen vis-a-vis international. Sometimes, while you can use this word interchangeably, I think the Supreme Court very clearly wanted to clear the distinction between these two. Please note, citizenship is only granted to natural persons. Yeah, it is granted to me and you. We are natural individuals. Citizenship is not granted to corporates. They are not granted to legal personalities and legal entities. Whereas a company registered in India can be considered to hold Indian nationality. Right. So I think natural persons who hold citizenship enjoy civil and political rights, whereas nationality entitles you to a status that will determine rights of entities in international. So that can be said to be the distinction, because mostly international treaties refer to nationalities. They talk about what can member nations do to their own nationals. So that can be the basis of distinction in terms of clarity of what these two mean. But of course, vis-a-vis natural persons within the constitution as we the people, the concept is citizenship.